the tugboat, for its size, is the most powerful craft afloat, and the star tugs help power behind the docks and waterways that make up the big city port. This is TUGS. Yep, folks, I'm talking about TUGS. Now, I've seen a lot of people dive into, like, the bigger episodes, like munitions and whatnot, but I'm gonna dive into every episode, regardless if I think they're good or not. And I'm gonna talk about the characters that make up the episodes. I'm not gonna be talking about the characters if they don't really have a role, like Pearl, if you even remember who that is. But if I think they don't serve a purpose in this, I figure I might as well talk about them. And also, if they're a lead of an episode, I might as well talk about them. The first episode and pilot episode of this little mini-series was Sunshine. And I bet you can't guess who the main character of the episode is. Gee, I wonder. Anyway, this episode introduces us to all the star tugs. So let's just go over the highlights. I want to mention Zip. Zip is just such an idiot, and this continues throughout the entirety of TUGS. Zug has always been the smarter one, even though they all both serve the same purpose of the TUGS. They're both switches. Now, Zip doesn't have, like, a huge presence in this episode, and I'm only mentioning him because he just speaks way too much when Captain Zero is explaining, and he's always so dumb. I mean, it's never not funny every time I rewatch this. Now I'm going to talk about 10 Cents. 10 Cents is kind of the show's Thomas. He's a cheeky little scamp, except he's a lot more heroic than Thomas, which we'll see later in the episodes, and even somewhat in this episode. The fact he's voiced by a teenager really makes the line deliveries really funny. I mean, listen to this.
Next to it was the seaplane hangar. One of the Star Tug's jobs was supplying fuel for Sally.
Hello, 10 Cents. Who's your new friend?
Sunshine meets Sally. She's our seaplane.
Hello, Sally.
I don't know, just the way he says she's a seaplane. It just sounds like he's really trying to, like, nudge Sunshine, and yeah, Sunshine does wolf whistle, so, I ship it. Anyway, now would be a good time to talk about Sally. Now, Sally's really just basically an enigma. Like, this friendly gal that we don't see much of. She's really kind, and I think Sunshine might have a bit of a crush on her. And I like her design. I think the reason I like characters like her and Grampus is because they're so, like, moved from the normal designs of, like, Hercules, 10 Cents, OJ, Sunshine. And I think that's what makes them stand out. That's really all I have to say about Sally, though. This is really the only episode where she has a plot relevance. Now let's talk about Sunshine. Sunshine is basically just 10 Cents' little buddy. And I love the scene where 10 Cents is trying to find him. Sunshine just thinks no one wants him anymore because of an accident that was caused by Zoran, but he didn't know it was Zoran, thinks it's him. And I really like his line deliveries, love his whistles, even though some seem to be more personal, like the aforementioned Sally one. He's just a cute little happy guy. Not much else to say. Now let's talk about Lily Lightship and Hercules. They probably have one of the funniest scenes in the episode. Like, 10 Cents is trying to look for Sunshine. He just, like, interrupts their midday conversation. I've always gotten the impression that these two are, like, in a romantic relationship. And Hercules is just so flustered. He's like, yeah, sure, just got back. Yeah, I definitely haven't been sitting here for this long, flirting with Lily. And 10 Cents is just like, yeah, sure, buddy. Yeah, that's always funny. Lily is a really interesting character, which I will dive into more when we get to Regatta, but that's really all I have to say about her. And about Hercules, he's always kind of freaked me out. Like, does he really think he can call a naval sweetheart and get away with it? Like, come on, man. I know it's not like that, but still, it's always kind of freaked me out. That's about it I have to say about them. Now for episode 2, Pirate. Now let's segue into Grampus. If you couldn't tell by my profile picture, Grampus is by far my favorite TUGS character. He's just so fun whenever you see him. The fact he just squirts water at everybody. This wasn't really a quirk yet, but it will be shown later. I like Grampus's determination to clear Tencent's name. And speaking of Tencent, him being accused of stealing the barges was a pretty neat idea. I like Sea Rogue and like what it stands for. He seems like the bad guy, but he's really just been doing this, stealing barges, just because they're holding his uncle for ransom and will kill him if he doesn't steal barges for them. That's a really interesting character complex, and in the 15-minute version, the whole line about the book by its cover kind of oversimplifies the story. Like, we were already told he wasn't, and I mean, I'm sure Tencent initially thought until Grampus explained to him, but still, that's really about it, I guess. Now let's talk about Zug. I talked about Zip already, but Zug is... I don't think Zip is even in this episode. But Zug is just kind of abandoned by Zoran. And Zoran lets Zug take full blame when it was kind of his fault. And yeah, Zoran is also a character I find really interesting. His voice deliveries are really cool. They sound so menacing. And I love when he gets washed up on the beach. That will never not be funny. But now let's talk about everyone's favorite character in this episode. Yep, folks, it's Billy Shearpack. We all love Billy Shearpack, right? He's a pretty minor character, but still, he does leave an impression. I love his interactions with Sunshine, them knowing each other. I love the ongoing rivalry with Big Mac. With Big Mac under his breath just disses him. And he's just okay with it because he gets to blow up dynamite or something. I don't know. He's just really funny. Not much else to say about this episode. I like the use of Top Hat in this episode. He isn't my favorite Star Tug. I think he's a bit overrated. I just see him as Gordon, but dialed down a bit. And he does have a really big hero moment, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I do like that he stretches his head to see and talk to Tencent over to Tramper. I thought that was really cool. And Tencent's dedication in this episode is really cool. I mean, that's really respectable. Yeah, Tencent is a lot moved from Thomas. And even Jack to an extent. That's really all I have to say. It was entertaining. I mean, a whole dang Tramper blew up eventually. That was pretty cool, I guess, but that's about it. It was entertaining. I liked the final scene with everyone flowing down. And Zug getting the last laugh at Zoran's expense is so fitting. Because I know that's kind of Zoran's character, where he just treats everyone on the Zed stacks pretty awfully, because he can't trust them, or they're just idiots. But I think it's fitting for Zug to make fun of him with the stars. Now on to my favorite episode. It's not Munitions. It's not Pirate. It's Regatta. Regatta has so many of my favorite characters get fleshed out. We get to see more of Lily, and we get to see more of Grampus. We get to learn a lot more about Lily, that she's stationary and wants to go places, like, because she never gets to do anything really, never gets to see anything exciting. And we get to see Grampus's kinder side be expanded. He's really selfless. He was willing to put his whole face in danger just to save Lily. That's pretty admirable, man. And then there's the other characters I really love in this episode. Honestly, it's the garbage trio. Warrior, Lord Stinker, and Jack the Grappler are so good. I'll just let the whole scene play out.
Morning, Jack. Nice day for garbage.
There's no garbage today.
What do you mean, no garbage today? There's heaps behind you.
No garbage today.
But I gotta have garbage. You know, I gotta have garbage. His lordship needs garbage. We all need garbage.
It's a festival day or something, so there's no garbage.
I love Warrior. He's basically pretty much what I think why I love Ned from Jack in the Pack. Pretty much the same reasons if I ever reviewed Jack in the Pack. I love his gullible side. I also love Jack the Grappler. He is so funny. And the fact he just tells him, no garbage, like 3,000 times. It's always funny. And I love his design. It's just a face on a grappler crane. And the fact the other part of the crane is fully its own character is so weirdly funny. And I also love Lord Stinker. He's probably my second favorite TUGS character after Grampus. Lord Stinker, yeah, he's really cool. And I love his interactions with Warrior. They're like the best duo in all of TUGS. And then we have the blow up Grampus plot. Now this is the central part of the entire episode. Is that Blue Nose, an able Tug, comes over for a message from the Navy. Is that Grampus is too out of date to be useful. So they're gonna blow him up in target practice. The Star Tugs can't let this happen, because Grampus is their friend and does a lot of things for them, as 10 Cents put it. So 10 Cents goes to find OJ, and sure enough, OJ has a plan, but they march out to the sea and stop the Navy. Also, I forgot to mention, Grampus just completely comes up and like squirts water in Blue Nose's face. That's kind of funny. Grampus just practically begs the Star not to save his life, as it will get them into trouble and he'll be like a wanted outlaw or something, I don't know. But they're saving his life, and he's really selfless. And you gotta appreciate that in a character. You can't really see that in any other character in TUGS, other than like 10 Cents sometimes. And Grampus is just dialed up to 101. And then, of course, there's the infamous log scene. And I love the parade. And I love we get to see that the municipal garbage has done a good job decorating its colleagues. Like Jack's little hat. And I also love that the announcer literally just acknowledges and makes fun of Hercules that he doesn't have anyone to pull or anything like that. That's kind of funny. And in the end, Grampus surfaces carrying the Star flag, as he's now a recognized 8th member of a Star fleet, as he was bought out by Captain Star. I think this was a really happy ending for Grampus. I know that sounds corny, but still. Alright, we've reached the big one. Munitions is probably the most violent episode of TUGS, and that's really saying something. Because we've already had someone being threatened to be murdered for ransom, and that's not the most darkest. Far from it, in fact. And I wouldn't even go as far to say, but this is the darkest. We'll get to that in a minute. But still, I do like this episode. It's not my favorite, and I think it's a bit overhyped, but that's all I really have to say. Now let's talk about Blue Nose. I didn't really talk about him that much, and I like that he actually is a Blue Nose. I thought he just had a random name, but yeah. Other than that, he is just insufferable, and some people like him. I'm more on the neutral side. I think there are better villains than him, and I don't know why they bothered to bring him back, really, after the whole regatta thing. But I do appreciate his, involvement in the big climax. Anyway, let's talk about Big Mickey. Now, there's a huge debate in this episode if Big Mickey died or not. I'm not going to say either one, because in the 15-minute cut, it says he survived, but in the 20-minute cut, it says he died. So, I don't know which one is right. They probably didn't know, how people would react to killing off a character, even though they would later do that in Thomas and Friends. Duncan gets spooked. Yeah. That's really all I gotta say, though. It's a really big episode with a lot going on. Similar to Regatta, but I don't think it's a top 3 for me. Now on to Warrior. Warrior has 2 spotlight leads. I don't even think 10 Cents even had that many. I do like Warrior, but I think they could have opted to give Big Mac a lead, and I think this is the far less interesting one than the other one. They both resolve around his stupidity somehow, making something work. In a way. The only thing I can really comment on is Pearl's here, I guess. Nothing really to her, just kind of there. And now will be a good time to talk about Big Mac. Big Mac is one of my favorite of the Starfleet. Probably my second favorite. There's just something about him I like. He's just very blunt and takes crap from nobody type. But he is gentler than that, and that's especially shown when he's seen with Warrior. I think him and Warrior are the same type, which would technically make them brothers. And Big Mac, I'm pretty sure, is the strongest Tug. And yeah, I'm sure he takes, instead of being like ego infested from that, he's very humble. And I really like that. And I love whenever he stands up for Warrior when he's being like, when like the Zed stacks are being mean to him or something, I don't know. Also, we get Izzy Gomez in this episode. Izzy Gomez is just the definition of a cheapskate, honestly. He wants to get into, like, port free, and is always, like, trying to, but, like, everyone stops him. It's funny, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if this is the type of character you should be putting in a kid's show. It's really entertaining, but I don't know, this is just, I don't know. Also, I like Grandpa's diving, because he thinks the Warrior's gonna hit him, he's like, ah! And then we don't see him for like 2 minutes, and then he finally comes back. It's funny. I like that. Now let's talk about High Tide. High Tide, I think, is the most overrated episode. Just because I think Top Hat is slightly overrated. Top Hat is very ego-infested, and he has more humor moments than, like, Gordon in the actual show, in my opinion. Doesn't really have his quote-unquote redemption, doesn't really feel like it mattered, because, like, the next time we see him, he's just rude again. I'm glad we see there's more to him, but that's really about it. Also, Lord Stinker gets a part to play, and he earns Top Hat's respect, but with him and Top Hat becoming heroes by the end. By, like, catching a train. Quarantine. Probably the most mid episode. Not counting Warrior. Honestly, maybe Warrior might even be better, but Quarantine is just kinda, I don't know. But he's kind of getting to everyone, that's sort of explained, but the fact that Captain Star straight up threatens to kill 10 Cents of Sunshine without him, like, narrating that, like, it's gotten to him or something, and he was upset. He, like, lost gambling or something like that, I don't know. It just kind of throws me off, because he sounds so much like a jerk. And the sinking barge scene isn't even that exciting for a scene that should be. And there's only real highlights of this episode. Burke and Blair. Burke and Blair are just these creepy businessmen that want to kill OJ because, like, I don't know why, he's old or something. They're just creepy businessmen, and that's what I like about them. They're not like menaces like Blue Nose or a certain guy we'll get to in a few episodes. No, they're just creepy businessmen that want to kill OJ for some reason. I don't know. Want to sell him for scrap or something so they get money. I don't know. Ghosts is a fun episode. And all of the characters seem in character. Zoran is just a brat. Izzy is still a cheapskate. Grampus is still a cheeky grandfatherly figure. Top Hat is still a jerk. And that's really about it. All the characters feel like how they should be in this episode, and that's really cool. And I also love the dark visuals and the white tugs scaring everyone, because I think they're ghosts in the dark. And I like that they're explained by the end by Hercules. And who can talk about this episode without talking about the deleted scene with that random weird face on Big Mickey called Snatcher? I would have actually liked to see that. Also, I want to note that this is the last episode of Tugs where Grampus speaks. What a way to go out on.
Oh, I must have been dreaming. I lost my bearings in the fog and moored here for the night.
Here? That is funny.
What's so funny?
You're only 500 yards from the Star TUGS pier. It's there, look.
Now on to was probably the most dark episode. Jinxed is an episode that we all remember just because of how depressed and slightly suicidal the main character is. This is why I think it's dark. It's not like they're holding like things for ransom, like in Pirate. He straight up wants to die. Like literally the first time we see him, he says he's waiting for a ship to run him over. I do like the lore a bit, and Boomer is a nice character. It's just a bit overwhelming. And it's kind of hard to write a suicidal character into a kid's show, but I think they did it pretty well, though. And I like 10 Cents and Sunshine just slowly accepting that Jinx is real and that it's something they're gonna have to deal with. Boomer wasn't kidding. Now, I think the whole lore about his name being changed, which is actually urban legend for ship owners, that if you change the name of a tug, then it's cursed. And this is basically that in a nutshell. And I can appreciate that. And yeah, that's about it. They somehow got a suicidal character to work in a children's show. Don't ask me how. But that's not all to the story. Eventually, Boomer is happy at last as he's converted to a tug house, like near a resort, where humans can just chill on him. And he's happy is that he's not jinxed anymore. Wait, you can't really be jinxed if you can't move. And I do like his other traits, and I don't hate his suicidal traits. I just think it's so weird that they wrote a character suicidal in a kid's show, and they're not even, like, hiding it. He cheers as he sinks. He wants to get run over by a ship. This bro is just so done with everything. Yeah, that's really all I have to say about this episode. Other than that, I think we lost this is the first episode filmed, which would mean I think they were testing out 30 minutes, and this is the 15-minute cut we only got. So we could have lost half the episode, or maybe they made only 20 minutes. But there's some loose plot threads that don't go anywhere, like 10 Cents' whistle somehow being the cause of a jinx. I don't know. There is no explanation for the jinx, and I think that's what I like about it. Yeah, it's just, that's really all I have to say. I mean, I like Boomer's other traits, sarcastic, rude. It's kind of, I love those types of characters. They kind of fit me a bit, in a way. And Boomer has those traits as well as his suicidal tendencies written. And that's really all I have to say for the episode. I think it's slightly overrated, but I can definitely get behind it. Probably a top, 10. Alright, guys. It's time for the episode. The one with the one and only Johnny Cuba. I am sorry, Bluenose and Burke and Blair. You are not the most intimidating TUGS villain. It's Johnny Cuba. Johnny Cuba literally threatens to sink Zebedee and pour cement on his hull. This dude is an old criminal friend of Captain Zero's, and they had an ugly falling out. And so he was banned from ever entering the port again. And Zebedee comes across him. Johnny Cuba says he'll sink him if he tells Captain Zero, but he knows Captain Zero will probably disown him for associating with such a terrible person. So, yeah, Zebedee is just kind of stuck between both sides, and it's kind of Percy and Day of the Diesels, but done better, way better, honestly. And I feel like that's what makes it so good. Johnny Cuba is really intimidating, and his voice definitely helps. And the fact he's literally said to be a gangster and a criminal is just like, Boomer's suicidal traits. They don't even try to hide this stuff in a freaking kid show. Also, we get to see another, ocean liner like Izzy Gomez, but I think Johnny Cuba is far more interesting than Izzy. Even though Izzy appears like more than once, and Miss Bro only appears like this episode. But yeah, I think High Winds is definitely a top 3. It's really interesting, and it gives us the best villain who is so dislikable. And we honestly side with Zebedee, even though he's a Zed stack that we've been hating this entire thing, because we see most of it from a Star Tugs perspective, but now we're seeing it from the other lens. And that's what makes this episode so great. I love this episode. Plain and simple. Upriver is a very, well, get this, upbeat episode. That was not intentional, but it was still pretty corny anyway. Whatever. I like the overall central conflict, including like these just logs blocking everyone. I think that's kind of funny. And we get to see Puffa again, I think was in Munitions, but I didn't mention Puffa because Puffa didn't really have anything to do. Puffa doesn't really have anything to do here either. I just thought I'd mention them. And in this episode, we get the grand return of Billy Shoepack. Billy Shoepack was the best part of Trapped, and he's still a fun character here. And I love that Big Mac not liking him is still a constant thing. And yeah, there isn't really much else to say about this episode, really. Just kind of exists with everything else. Not the worst. Might be top 10 or 11. I don't know. Depends. And finally, to our last episode of TUGS. I've been watching this video for this long, and now we've come to a close. It's Big Freeze. This is the only winter episode, and it makes that interesting. Like, alone, because it's the only episode sent in winter with snow and all that. And I think the overall plot is cool, with a big event going on, and it's very finale-like. It feels like we already know Tug is gonna end by the time, like, the halfway mark comes around. But yeah, it's a really big event, and it's really cool. And there isn't really much else to say. I kind of cracked up when Jack the Grappler had a red nose. I think he was sick. Poor guy. Anyway, that's it. That's the end of Tugs. In conclusion, I think this was a very, inspiring show that I think really any audience could like. It depends on which kind of genres you're in at all. They go from various tones in the show, and I love the variety. I will dive into Jack in the Pack. That will happen. I'm not sure when, but it will happen. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day. See you later.